Hello, hello, hello.
Hello, hello.
Hello, everyone in the conversation community. Hi, how are y'all doing? I just want to say welcome to the conversation. If this is your first time joining me, I want to say thank you for joining me on the conversation. Thank you for tuning in. If this is not your first time joining the conversation and you are a part of the conversation community, TC community, hello. Now you've noticed me acknowledge them as the TC community. And if you are not a part of the TC community, guess what? Hey, don't even fret. You can definitely be a part of the TC community by three ways. And yes, that's what I said, by three ways. How, you ask? Like it, share it, or make a comment. Because one thing about the conversation and what we do, and part of the TC community, is we have conversations. This is not just a conversation between me and my guests, but it's also a conversation with the listeners and the viewers. So this platform is to be helpful, to gain awareness, to gain insight, and to help you on your journey, as well as my guests and myself. We talk about our journey. So this is to help you on your journey. And so again, I just want to say welcome, and thank you for tuning in. So, but without any further ado, I would like to get to our guest on this evening. Yes, I'm so excited to have Mr. Jackson in the building. Well, not in the building, but hey, on the live. I'm so excited. Y'all just don't even understand how excited I am. But I'm so excited. So, Mr. Jackson,
Hey, good afternoon, good evening, Andrea, and good evening to everyone out there who is listening, paying attention, and being a part of the TC, the conversation. I hope everybody's doing well and everybody's having a great evening thus far.
Yes. So one thing I like to do, because this month, as you know, is we have been discussing males and mental health. We know that that is definitely a topic that sometimes is not really talked about. I want to say talked about. I want to say giving much exposure. That's the word I'm going to use. Not giving much exposure. And what we have definitely learned previously throughout this month, as we have been talking about males and mental health, is that the space has not been created for men to express themselves, to express their emotions, their thoughts, and their feelings, so that they can have those moments where they, I don't want to say vulnerable, but I do want to say just express and verbalize what's going on with them at that moment in time, to really express those experiences that they are feeling. But so this is a space where we create that they have that space to discuss how they feel, what their feelings are. And then so we can also gain that insight, like I said before. And so, ladies, I know you have seen lots of gentlemen this month, hey, but even for us as women, we do need to gain the insight, because sometimes we can be the ones that's not creating that space for our husbands, for our friends, and for our relatives. And so when we know better, we do better, but we must be taught first.
Yep.
And so this is what this is. This is definitely a teaching platform, a teaching space, so that we can operate in a different manner. So some signs and some so different signs that we look at when a family member or someone that we love, a colleague or a coworker, as you know, I said before, they may be experiencing anxiety, depression, bipolarism, PTSD. These are definitely some signs that you will see. And these are some, and the ones that I kind of name are more the common ones that you will see. So these are not the only ones. And I do want to put that out there. These are not the only ones, but I'm just naming more of the general ones that you see. They may have outbursts. You might see them having, and I call these emotional outbursts. They might be irritated more. They might be annoyed more often. You might see them more angry. You might see them excessively worrying, crying, feeling sad, in a place empty, feeling low, helpless, tense, like I said, always on edge. These are just different signs of, hey, my loved one or my coworker may be experiencing some things that they need support, or they might need that place to talk about it. And as we said before, if you're not that person to give them that support, then please refer them to a professional or someone that can give them that support that they are need to just help them along their journey. And again, these are just some different signs and some symptoms that you may see within your loved one, your coworker, someone like that. But we have a lot of people that are tuned in. They have said hello. We have Marquita. Hello, hello, honey. How are you doing? We have Yvette Brown Moore. Hello, hello. We have, I believe this is for you.
That's a good brother right there. So what's going on, Craig?
Yes, and we just have so many greetings, and we have love coming from all over the place. So let's just really go ahead and get into it. So, Mr. Jackson, can you
Mr. Roy.
please tell can you please tell the TC community just a little bit about yourself?
All right. First off, like I said, good evening, TC community. My name is Tiran Jackson. I'm hail from Atlanta, Georgia, and I do a couple of different things. I've gone through a transition in my life. Currently, I am a inspirational and motivational speaker. And I'm going to share with you part of my unforgettable story where I had to overcome adversity following an unexpected tragedy that it was coupled with traumatic loss. And nowadays, what I look to do is help people overcome the challenges that they're facing in their life. Because I had to go through a tremendous level of recovery, which I'll go into a little bit later as to my story and what led to that. I am a father. I am a husband again, because and I'll share with you some of that story as well. And I try to be a inspiration, as I stated, to so many people out there who are going through things. And a lot of us don't realize the challenges, issues, and just the things that we're facing and how they have a cumulative effect on us emotionally, mentally. And so part of what I do is try to help people understand what those issues are and figure out how they're going to get past to live their best life and be successful and happy. Because I had to go through some things that put me in a situation where I had to find that for myself.
Awesome, awesome. So that's just a little bit, a tip of the iceberg that you're going to give them. Just a
Yeah,
tip of the iceberg. Awesome.
I
Okay.
can go more if you want.
Okay. So how about this? So before we really get into it, give the TC community a fun fact about you. What is something that you like, or something that you're tickled already?
So, fun fact about me.
Yes.
Let's see. Let's see. Um, uh, a fun fact. Something. Well, one thing that I really like to do now is to run,
Mm,
and it's going to be interesting once you learn a little bit more about me, because that was something I didn't care to do before. And so
mm.
so I've gotten more and more into trying to be not just physically well, but into actually trying to get out and run a little bit. So it's
Awesome.
maybe not the funnest fact in the world, but something that's, like I said, it's
I
interesting.
don't know. We was looking for something like maybe you like to eat gummy bears at nighttime,
Oh,
but with you being a
okay.
runner.
I'll tell you this. No, here's a really, well, it's not a fun fact, but it is something that I've always been um, had a weakness towards. I love chocolate chip cookies, and when I was a kid, and I always
Ooh.
loved them. I always eat them. That's what I eat at night when I got a sweet tooth and need to go to sleep. Eat some chocolate chip cookies and
Oh.
milk. And I was known as Cookie Monster when I was a kid. So that was the thing, and it's stuck with me even to this day. So. There you
Well,
go.
well, awesome, awesome, awesome. Well, and thank you for sharing that fun fact with us.
Yeah.
You know, I'm trying to see, what would my fun fact be?
What would your fun fact be?
I don't know. I'm not. I eat anything pretty much. I think
Yeah.
that's the fun fact. As I've gotten older, I have realized that I cannot eat everything that I used to.
Yeah.
back in the day. Because I
Hmm.
still like to wake up in the morning and eat tacos. And my body does not like that. Or I want to
Yeah.
wake up in the morning and eat the hamburger, the other half of the hamburger that I had last night. The
I
body
don't know
does
if that's a
not.
good thing.
Yeah, so that's the problem with me. Yes, but and I do like my sweets every now and then, but
Hmm.
that's me. I like to try to eat everything, and all of us ain't working together no more.
I understand.
Yes. But yes, all right. So let's go ahead and get into this. Again, TC community, if you have any questions, please share your questions with me. I would definitely ask Mr. Tiran what your question is so he can give you more insight. If there's something that he said, if it's something that he said that was a golden nugget for you that resonated with you, please put it in the chat so then we can definitely have Taran hit it again. Because I might be like, whoa, wait a minute, that was a mic drop. Let us hit it again because somebody needs this while they are on their journey, while they are going through what they are going through. And as y'all heard just a little bit, he has um a story that is definitely, definitely, definitely going to touch you, but help you also to overcome the things that you're going through. And I don't know if you have seen the ways that you can connect with him. And just by his connection, his company is Reborn Resilience. So, hey, that alone should give you a little bit of where he is about to go. So, Mr. Turan, can you
Yes.
please tell the TC community a little bit about what it was that you've been through and how you come with the name of your company, Reborn Resilient? When was the time or what happened that you were reborn again?
So thank you, Andrea, for asking the question. And I will start off going back about 3.5 years ago. At that point in time, I was myself and my previous wife. We were celebrating our 15th wedding anniversary, and in doing so, this was the summer of 2018, and we had both had a lot of things going on with our jobs at the time. I was a engineer. That's what I did previous to what's happened with my life now. And she was a HR director for a Fortune 500 company. And we had a lot of different things going on that kept us busy, kept us traveling. And as we were getting closer and closer to this milestone occasion, we thought, okay, we were going to plan a trip. We were going to get away from everything and everybody and go have us some private time, go have a good time on an island, go to a resort, just disconnect from everything that was going on.
Mm-hmm.
So we chose to take a trip to the Bahamas for our anniversary. Stayed at a resort where we had us a great time. Started having the first 2 days were great. Got to have a couple of fruity drinks and have us a good time on the beach. And on the third day, while we were there, we thought we would actually go on a small boat to go on an excursion to tour the island. It's one of the typical fun things that people do when they actually get away and go on vacation. Thought
Mm-hmm.
nothing of the normal, other nothing of the normal out of doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And we decided we would get up that early. We got to where we needed to get to for the excursion well in advance. We had breakfast, got to the bus. The bus took us to the marina where we actually got on this boat. We were going to go on a half-day tour and get to see so many different things while we were on it. Thought this was going to be a great adventure.
Mm-hmm.
The excursion was supposed to take out at 9 o'clock in the morning.
Okay.
We
So
got
not
up.
to cut you off. So it sounds like this was a ordinary morning for you guys, but just with the excitement of the getaway and the anniversary.
Right, right. This was
Okay.
part of that vacation. Everything had been going great up until that point, and we thought this was just going to be another adventure as part of our anniversary trip.
Mm-hmm.
Um, as I stated, we got on a boat. Everything was fine, and we were getting ready to take off. No issues. 5 minutes into it, we have left the dock. We have started on our journey. It's a beautiful morning. We can see the trees and the sunlight, and we can see iguanas, and we're thinking, okay, this is going to be a
Mm.
great time. And then all of a sudden everything changed. The next thing I knew, I was waking up on the deck of this burning boat.
Mm.
And I didn't know what was going on and what had happened. I was face down on my stomach. I looked down. I saw what woke me up from being knocked unconscious was my right leg was literally on fire and I was burning. I looked down at my left foot, my left leg, and I see my ankle bone. I see my foot just dangling. And I'm here, the boat is burning and it's right next to me. And I'm trying to literally push myself up and I crumble and I fall back down. And I try to push up again, get on my knees, and I couldn't push myself up. I didn't know it at the time. My left collarbone was broken. And so I
Mm.
couldn't do anything but basically reach my right arm out and put my fingertips in the ridges of the deck of the boat to try to drag myself away from the fire and close to the edge of the boat. There was a second boat that took off with us, and they weren't too far away from us. And I could see people from that boat yelling to me, "Get off the boat, get off the boat." So I'm trying to pull myself towards this way. And at this point, I don't see anybody. I don't see Malika. I don't see my former wife. And I'm just thinking, okay, what has happened and
Mm.
what is going on? And as I'm dragging myself to the edge of that boat, I pass out again. Now, thank God that this was very early in the trip, and there were two boats going at the same time, essentially. Some of the passengers from that other boat were able to come over and help get me off of the boat before it exploded a second time. And the next thing that I recall is I was being placed on the back of a pickup truck on a piece of plywood. I was actually carried and put on here and being carried to a clinic in the Bahamas. And
Mm.
there was one other person who was with me that was a passenger on that second boat. And all I could ask him was, "What about Malika? What about my wife? How was she?" He said that she was already going to the clinic and that I was the last one to be taken to the clinic that was injured horribly.
Mm-hmm.
Next thing I know, I'm getting put on a stretcher, being rolled into the clinic. And as I'm getting rolled in, I could hear my wife. I could hear her moans and her yells. She was in pain. She was in a bay already getting medical treatment. And
Mm-hmm.
I could do nothing about it. I was horribly injured. And I didn't know what was going on and how she was, but I could hear that she was in horrible pain. Finally, they get me to a bay and I could still hear her. And I just tried to make myself as still as possible, praying to God as to, I hope that she's all right. I'm not as concerned about myself, even though I'm in pretty bad condition. And finally, the doctor comes over to me. And the first thing I ask him is, "How is Malika?"
Yeah.
And he tells me that we're sending you and another passenger to the good hospital. So we're going to put you
Mm.
on a plane and fly you to Nassau to where they've got better medical treatment, because he said they couldn't treat me there. And all they did was basically try to wrap up my left foot so the bleeding wouldn't be all over the place, and and let them treat me there. And
Mm-hmm.
my question back to him was, "What about Malika?"
Yeah.
And he told me, "Well, she'll be coming after you get there." So I'm trying to figure. So I left there thinking, okay, she must be doing better than I'm doing, because they're
Mm-hmm.
sending me and they sent one other passenger who was horribly injured to the hospital. So the next thing I know, I'm getting admitted into this hospital, going into the emergency room. They start checking my vitals. Vitals are stable, but they wanted to put me into surgery and try to reattach my left foot. And as this was going on, my question was, "Where's Malika? How is she? Is she coming?"
Mm-hmm.
Because that's the only thing I'm really concerned about. I don't know what happened. I don't know what's going on with myself, but I do know that, okay, she should be coming here too. And I want to make sure that she's all right. There's no answer. So
Mm.
I get put to sleep and go into surgery where they try to reattach my left foot to my ankle.
Whoa.
And later that evening, as I finally come to and I awaken in a room, I ask the doctors as soon as they come in, "Where's Malika? Has she gotten here yet?"
Mm-hmm.
And the doctors leave the room. And they end up talking and coming back in, and they tell me, Mr. Jackson, we hate to inform you, but Malika didn't make it. Now here I am. I'm trying to be optimistic about it. I'm thinking, okay, did her flight, something happen with the plane? Did she just not make it here yet?
Mm-hmm.
And then they tell me, no, she died. She didn't make it through the accident. And so here I am. And at the time, I didn't know how badly I was injured, but I had a broken right foot, severed
Mm-hmm.
left foot, second, third degree burns all down my leg, a fractured pelvis, fractured vertebrae, broken collarbone.
Ooh.
I was in bad condition, and on top of the physical trauma that I was literally going through, I now had to be told that my wife died so suddenly, so painful, and that was emotionally, that was the worst thing I could imagine, because here we are, we're supposed to be having a phenomenal time, enjoying ourselves on vacation, celebrating our anniversary,
Mm-hmm.
and now things have turned so sour. And so I find myself struggling to accept the fact right then and there in that moment that the woman who I was building my future with, the love of my life, was gone.
Yeah.
She was no longer here. It was one thing to hear those words, it's another thing for it to start to sink in.
Mm.
And then as I moved forward the next day, I actually had to call our son. He was 12 years old at the time. He was staying with family. And I had to tell him, son, over the phone, that your mom is not coming back home. And that was one of the most painful things I've had to do, because I could hear his heart drop across the phone, and how
Wow.
he thought mom and dad were just going on vacation and gonna come back in a couple days. And now I'm having to tell them that his mom passed away. And then, to make matters even worse, um, later that same evening,
Mm-hmm.
as I mentioned, they tried to reattach my left foot,
Yes.
and it was infected. And I didn't know this at the time. So I was laying in the hospital bed, and as I was doing so, all of my vitals started to go from green to yellow to red. And I was laying in the bed, seeing the EKG monitor over my head, and praying to God and thinking to myself, okay, you've already taken my wife, and now you're going to take me as well. And I went to sleep that night thinking, this is the last time I'm going to close my eyes. I'm not going to wake up again. And so I went to a point, I was at a point where I was broken physically,
Mm-hmm.
mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And I'm thinking, okay, my life is done and over. I'm praying to God to help me get through this.
Yeah.
And, somehow I did wake up that next morning, and there were a lot of things that were happening in the background. And there
Yeah.
was trauma in the US that was actually wanting to accept me after hearing what happened. And they sent for an air ambulance to send me from the Bahamas. They came, picked me up, and took me to this unit in Florida. And they said we were going to do whatever we needed to try to make sure that he lives. And as soon as I got there that afternoon, they told my family, who had arrived in the Bahamas just like the day before, that they had to put me through a couple of surgeries to try to preserve my life. So at that point, they decided that they were going to take my left leg below the knee, because that's where the infection had generated from, and they were
Uh-huh.
going to keep it from being able to basically stop my heartbeat from beating, and stop from me being able to live. So they
Yeah.
had to do that. And then the next day they had to go through four more surgeries to try to put other parts of me back together. And then
Mm.
later I had to go through three more surgeries. Uh, Three surgeries on my left leg, one for my broken right foot, one for my shoulder, and then for the burns that I had. And
So this is
after,
like over 10 surgeries.
it was a total of eight surgeries.
Okay.
Well, nine surgeries if you count what they did in the Bahamas as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll say this: as I was going through those times, um, there came a point where I realized, after the second time, I had to go through the four surgeries in one day.
Yes.
Um, that next day, as I was starting to come to, and I was starting to feel a little bit better, I said to myself, and I said to God, essentially in my conversations with them, if you wanted to, you could have taken me on the boat when the accident happened. You
Mm.
could have taken me when I was in the hospital in the Bahamas and my vitals were going bad.
Mm.
And even that third day, after I had to go through those multiple surgeries, my body wasn't responding well right away. And I wasn't stable yet. And I could have been taken in. And at that point, I said, God, you must have some plan for me if you're going
Yeah.
to keep me here. And at that moment, that was the point where I said, I'm going to do everything I can in order to fulfill whatever purpose you got for me. I don't know what that is at this point. I'm
Yeah.
broken. I can't move. I'm having to deal with this heartbreak of losing my wife. I don't know how I'm going to be a single father and, have my son and take care of all of this. But I am going to make a conscious decision to not only get through this and survive, but I'm going to thrive. And at that moment, I spoke to
Mm.
be resilient and said, I'm going to be resilient and overcome whatever comes in front of me, and you're going to help me get through this. And so at that point, that was when the transition happened. So um, my journey, I didn't know what I was getting into. I didn't know what I was going to have to face. I had a lot of different emotions that came along with it. I didn't know how to deal with the grief and the
Yes.
heartache and the loss, because at that point in time, I was actually starting uh, to get my ability to reason back. It was such a blur as I was going in and out of, you know, surgeries and medication and anesthesia and all of these different things. But as I was getting past those surgeries, I was starting to think a little more clearly about what had happened and
Yes.
what was going to happen, and
Uh-huh.
so, or what my future might be. But
Mm.
that doesn't mean it was easy, because I did have to deal with the pain of acceptance of you know my wife no longer being here, and
Mm-hmm.
understand what life was going to have to be like.
Mm-hmm.
I had my left leg amputated. You don't realize how much of a mental change that does to us when we realize we look in the mirror and we're not what we once were. And
Yes.
I can't, walk. And at the point in time, I was, I couldn't even use crutches to move around, even for the first 8 weeks after the accident, because my shoulder was broken, my right foot was broken, and those things had to heal. I didn't know how people were going to look at me, how I was going to be seen or perceived. So there were so
Mm-hmm.
many issues that were beyond just the physical that I had to deal with, and the mental
Mm-hmm.
had to be something where I had to show that resilience and be strong and
Mm-hmm.
figure out steps that I needed to take in order to try to overcome this and try to manage it as best as I possibly could
Mm-hmm.
without knowing what I was getting into.
Mm-hmm. So walk us a little bit through that process. So at this point in your journey,
Hmm.
you said your right ankle is broken,
My right ankle and foot was broken.
your left leg was amputated,
Yes.
your collarbone or shoulder,
My collarbone.
your collarbone is broken,
Yes.
and you're
I had
dealing.
Oh yeah, I had a fractured vertebrae in my back, so I couldn't even sit up.
Woo.
And my pelvis was fractured as well. And I'm dealing with the emotional stress and pain of
Mm-hmm.
having to, the woman who I had been with for 17 years and had been married to for 15 years has been
Mm-hmm.
taken away from me.
Yes.
And so that was a very, very difficult. I mean, difficult doesn't do it justice in describing how challenging that was.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but after 2 weeks in the hospital, I ended up being discharged and actually staying with my sister, who had been there with me after the accident happened and everything. They flew down and she was with me, and I ended up having to live with her and my brother-in-law for
Uh-huh.
about 6 weeks, with the plan being physically I had to get to a point where I had to get to a point where I had at least 3 limbs that were functional. And so You got to. So I was in a state where the only limb that I had that was functional was my right arm. Everything else was either in a cast or in
Uh-huh.
a sling or either missing. So that was so I had to go through a period where I just had to basically, my day consisted of me lying in the bed
Mm-hmm.
and then being pushed in a wheelchair to a
Mm-hmm.
recliner in the living room and sitting there for about 10 hours
Mm-hmm.
and not really being able to do anything. And you got to realize that, as I stated before, my job before was that of an engineer, where I was
So you're
constantly
active,
thinking,
moving.
constantly
Yeah.
doing something. And to be put in a situation where you're completely helpless
Yeah.
mentally, that has a toll on you, that has a stress on you. Let's not
Mm-hmm.
even talk about the fact that, the emotional heartbreak that I'm having to, the
Deal
grief
with.
that goes along with that too. And then
Mm-hmm.
I won't even, yeah, it the
It's so
emotional,
many pieces.
it's
It's layers.
so much stacked on top of it.
Uh-huh.
The fact that I couldn't be myself, and then on top of that, my son, he was staying with his aunt and uncle, and
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want him to see me in that broken state too much. So it wasn't even like we were together, but he would visit me from time to time, and I talked to him over the phone. But that was the extent of what, it was very limited from that perspective. And then don't forget, I had PTSD too from that.
Mm-hmm.
So there were a lot of different um, mental issues that I was facing and dealing with in such a short period of time. And for
Mm-hmm.
somebody who had never really had to deal with these type of things before, it
Talk
was
about that.
it was a shock. It was a
Yeah.
shock. So
Yeah.
so that was that was definitely a struggle.
Yes.
Definitely a
And
struggle. And
so let's talk about, because it is so many layers to
yeah,
your story. And like you said, being broken mentally, physically, emotionally, and then you said spiritually.
yeah.
So, and it's just, and even within those words, it's still a lot of layers that's in that.
Yes. Yeah.
So if you can talk to the TC community, talk to us about how did you handle, or what was your process through your grief?
So the grief was hard because there's different stages of grief that we go through when
Hmm.
we're trying to process the fact that someone who was so close to us was gone.
Yes.
I did go through a stage where I didn't know I didn't know what I was going to do
Hmm.
and how I was going to function without my wife. It almost seemed like it wasn't real, and I was in denial for a period of time.
Hmm.
And so it was, and for my son, that was a struggle as well, because there were times where prior to the accident, where she would be gone for a week traveling for work, and it'd just be me and him, and we would do what we needed to do to get by. I might not have been the best chef or cook, but we made through, we got through it and everything. And
Hmm.
in a sense, both he and I wanted to think that it was like she was gone on a trip and gonna come back, but she just wasn't. It wasn't gonna happen. So
So that was in the acceptance stage.
that was part of the acceptance. Yeah, it took a while for me to get to accepting that the reality was that she was no longer here.
Hmm.
And I would have times where, and this is the best way that I can say that it got me through the grief initially,
Hmm.
was while I was at my sister's house, and I had this time. One of the things that I did do was I actually started journaling,
Okay.
and that was one of the greatest things that I could have done, because it allowed me to get some of the thoughts and the emotions that I had towards Malika out on paper.
Okay.
And as I was doing it, as I was starting to write to her and about her, I found
Mm.
myself crying. I found myself, reminiscing, thinking
Hmm.
about things. In some ways, I felt survivor's remorse, where, it was a sense of, well, why was it you that were taken and not me?
Uh-huh.
Because we were sitting right there, right beside each other.
Hmm.
And so, and then there was just the eventually having to get to that acceptance that, okay, she's really not coming back. Even though I knew it, it wasn't going to happen.
Yeah.
Um, it
So
took, go ahead. I'm
I did,
sorry.
and no, not to really cut you off. So I wanted to kind of just bring this awareness to the community. And so, as Tiran is talking about right now, he's talking about the stages of grief. And so, there are 5 stages of grief that a person will go through this on the process. So he have, and I wrote them down: anger, denial,
Mhm.
acceptance. There's a stage of bargaining where it's like, okay, we're gonna bargain this. Well, I'm gonna do this, and you
Mhm.
can do this for me. If you just bring this person back, or so
Yeah.
now we might find ourselves bargaining with God.
Yeah.
And which one did I hit? Acceptance. We did hit acceptance.
We covered acceptance, um,
Depression.
depression, and yeah, okay. And that was something that I had to definitely face and have to try to overcome. Just I'm going to touch on each one of those briefly
Go
in my
ahead.
story
Go
because
ahead.
when I said that the spiritual struggles that I had, because I was mad at God,
Mm-hmm.
when I was in the hospital bed and getting through those surgeries, the anger was there as to why did this have to happen to us? You know,
Mm-hmm.
we are God fearing individuals. We go to church. We believe we're that He created this world for
Mm-hmm.
us, and then all of a sudden, two good people we're in this horrible situation, and one of them taken away. And
Mm-hmm.
so I had to reconcile my space in that anger before I was able to move forward.
Yeah.
And that got me spiritually closer to God after being angry with him. And then
Mm-hmm.
anger towards not just, him, but like the captain of the boat and the company that we dealt with. There were a lot of other factors that, even though I couldn't do anything, I was mad about and I
Yeah.
was mad at because I didn't go on vacation and end up in this state. And then as I mentioned, there was the denial. I didn't want to believe the fact that she was gone.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to work myself. And it is not an easy process to get past that denial and get to accepting things, the
Uh-huh.
reality of it. As I was waking up every day, I was thinking back to the times where, I would wake up next to her. And I
Mm-hmm.
had to come to, realization that that was not going to happen again.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was a struggle. That was hard. And then, like you said, the bargaining piece. Um, you know, I tried to help. I tried to try to understand myself. You know, was there something that was going to come out of this that I
Mm-hmm.
just wasn't understanding? And that's where when I decided that the moment that I chose resilience, and I'm thinking, okay, God, you got something different for me, and
Yeah.
maybe this is why this happened. And I know everything is part of your plan and your will, but it doesn't make sense to me yet. And at this point, why you would take somebody who was such joy to the world, and hey,
Yeah.
given so much. And then as I was starting to move past this, and as all this was happening, I was still in a physically broken state.
Mm-hmm.
The depression really started to kick in, and I had to make sure that I tried to fight that depression as much as possible because I could see where I was going. This was
Okay.
probably about 3 weeks after the accident happened, and
Mm-hmm.
at that point in time, that's when we actually had the funeral for my former wife, and I
Which
got
was three
to
weeks later.
3 weeks later. Yeah, it took
Okay.
a while for us to get our body back from the Bahamas. It took a while for everything to work itself out, and then to when it got past that denial stage, definitely at
Uh-huh.
that point, because when you see and go through that experience, then it
Mm.
becomes even heavier and even more real.
Yeah.
And at that point, it hit me for real that she is not coming back, and I don't know what I'm gonna do. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know how I'm gonna be physically. I didn't know. The doctors told me that, you know, it may be um, you may be able to walk again. We can't guarantee how you'll walk because of the severity of how my leg was damaged when the infection had spread. So I didn't know physically what I was gonna be, what I was gonna look like. There are so many things that when you're a parent and you've got your spouse and your mate and you start to share responsibilities and duties, that you don't
Mm-hmm.
even think about doing. You take for granted because you know that other
Mm-hmm.
person's always there.
There. Yeah.
Well, now I'm like, okay, I don't know how to put lunch money in my kid's account. And it's like, you know, all of these things that she just took care of effortlessly. And I'm gonna have to, you know, find a way to do this. And then on top
Mm-hmm.
of that, our son, he was so, you know, emotionally fragile with everything that was going on, that how is I going to be strong for him,
Yeah.
and questioning, and all of these things got me feeling down on for myself, and the depression was starting to hit harder and harder.
Every
And
like moment by moment, it was just
it
hitting.
was just hitting, yeah.
Yeah.
And I started feeling sad, and you know, I was going through physical therapy, rehab, but that was a struggle for somebody who had always been able to, you know, move like I wanted to
Yeah.
not be able to lift your arm up and everything, and not
Mm-hmm.
be able. It just, you know, it was a struggle, and
Yeah.
so I realized that my mood was not moving in a positive direction. I've always been
Mm.
an optimistic person,
Yeah.
but I realized that all of those factors were part of the mental piece and the emotional piece that we don't always be mindful of or aware of. And
Mm-hmm.
and I basically, there was a level of uncertainty about what the future held,
Mm.
and this was
Mm-hmm.
what was scary to me. But and you know, I there was stress and anxiety that I was facing,
Yeah.
and didn't understand, you know, how I was going to deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say that once I physically got to a point where I could actually use my collarbone and get my shoulder, my arm again.
Uh-huh.
And I was able to, this was it was about 7 weeks after the accident. And I could actually put weight on my right foot again.
Mm-hmm.
I was able to move on crutches.
Mm-hmm.
And that started the process of me actually getting to a sense of normal again. At that
Okay.
point, I was able to move from my sister's house back to our home in Atlanta with my son and with my mom. She was staying with me.
Mm-hmm.
And as I got back home, the first thing that I did was go to my doctor and say, look, I need some help. I need a grief counselor, because
Mm-hmm.
I need to be able to understand how I'm going to process this mentally and emotionally, how I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to be able to do it for my son and be there for him
Yeah.
because he's dealing with this trauma as well, and just how to move forward with my life. And that
Mm-hmm.
was the best decision I could have made,
Mm-hmm.
because in the midst of that, going through that therapy, it helped reveal things to me that allowed me to be more vulnerable than I've ever been in my life.
Mm.
And you know, and I'd always been someone who kept things pretty close to the chest and wasn't overly outgoing.
Mm.
But
Sounds bottled up.
yeah, and so, but it allowed me a avenue to be able to actually share what I was feeling,
Okay.
share what I was going through,
Mm-hmm.
and get some positive, constructive direction and feedback
Mm-hmm.
on how to deal with those emotions and deal with that pain.
So with going through therapy, do you think that do well, I guess you know what, I'm gonna take that question off the
Go
table. Well,
ahead.
no, because I was about to ask this question and I thought about the different layers and I was like, you know what, scratch that question. Um yeah. But with going through the therapy, did you see some things within yourself that you didn't see before?
Oh yeah, I did, and that's part of where, you know, I refer to who I am as I was going through that as Tiran Jackson 2.0. I started going through a
You 2.0
transformation.
today?
Yeah, I'm 2.0 today.
Okay.
2.0 because what I realized were there were there were there were things that I had gotten from Malika that had made me a different person than I was before. However, I needed to be able to express myself in ways that I never did before, which
Mm.
that was a change. I needed to dig into the core and find my most authentic self, and
Okay.
understand what things were driving me, what things were going to
Mm.
motivate me and inspire me, because no longer it was a we, it was a me. And for me to be productive moving forward, and not saying that I had to, forget or look past the life that I'd had before. That's always going to be there. But for
Mm-hmm.
me to productively be able to move forward with life, I had to understand who I was.
So
And
if you can talk more about finding, well, not necessarily finding, but rediscovering
yeah,
your
that's what it is.
authentic, true self.
Yeah, I had to, um, as my therapist was talking to me about, what things do you like to do? What
Mhm.
do you want to do for yourself? As I said, I had worked as an engineer primarily because I knew it provided what we needed and I enjoyed it. But, it was one of those things where I didn't venture outside of the box too much and all because I wanted to
Oh.
make sure that I provided for the family and all. And so, it was a stable source of income and a
Mhm.
good job for me, and so I was fine with that. But now I found myself having to do things that I wanted to do and not what we wanted to
We
do,
want to
and I
do.
had to make decisions that I needed to for myself and my son, and
Mhm.
not what we would have done as a whole. And in
Mhm.
the midst of going through this process, I started finding out things about myself that I might have, you know, thought about 10, 12, 15 years prior,
Uh-huh.
and realized that, okay, some of those things I'm still interested in, some of them I'm not. But I
Mhm.
really had to dig down and understand, what those things were. I
Like
had
your
to
chocolate
go
chip
in.
cookies.
Yeah, well, those chocolate chip cookies have always been there. That didn't change. That's one thing that didn't change. So, but yeah, as far as like I I I, I just had to understand that there were certain things that I had a passion for and a purpose
Mhm.
in wanting to do or needing to do. And for instance, I was always a giver, somebody who was going
Mhm.
to sacrifice myself for others. And I realized I had to be more mindful of myself and what my true needs were in order to get through
Mm.
that situation. I had to get over this self-doubt that I had, of going from somebody who was, like I said, able to move and do what I wanted to at will before, to
Uh-huh.
okay, now I've got a prosthetic leg and I've got to get used to seeing myself like that. I
Yeah.
got to get used to doing things that I wanted to do. I found myself getting more involved in working out when I was physically capable of doing it, and wanting to keep that as a regular part of my routine. So I found myself doing different things that I didn't really do much of before. I learned how to
Mm.
swim with one leg, and that's something that's very hard to do. I'm gonna tell you,
Wow.
people don't think about that, but I wasn't a swimmer before. But and then that goes into my little fun fact initially. I never ran before, but here I was with the prosthetic, getting to a point where I was actually running 5Ks and doing things like that. And but what's
Whoa.
happening is that I was building, I was building confidence in
Mhm.
moving forward with this life that had placed
Mm.
so many obstacles that I had to get past.
Yeah.
And so in taking these small steps, it actually made me into a better person and saw that I could overcome challenges that I didn't realize I was able to, because I had never been put in a situation where I had to deal with something so traumatic. So
Mhm.
so there was a great deal that had come out of me having to go through that. And I, like I said, I've transformed from being a person who was pretty much focused on just, doing what he needed to for his career and his family, to now I'm all about helping other people overcome their challenges and
Mm.
understanding what they're facing and how we're going to get past it together, and
Yeah.
what things that it takes in order to hold people accountable to take those actions to
Yeah.
get beyond that. So
Mhm.
um,
So if you can give us a little bit of those action steps that you might give someone who was dealing with some challenges or obstacle, what would be like 3 steps that you would give them, like action steps for them to do?
Well, first thing that I like to tell people, and there's a lot of people who are dealing with like some type of hurt and pain, and I mentioned one of them. For those who lose someone close to them, one of the
Mhm.
best things I can say is journaling, and
Journal.
being able to get those thoughts out of your head and on paper, and being able to go back and look at that when times are when you're emotional, when
Uh-huh.
you're feeling a certain type of way. Because what happens with that, at least for me, is that some of those things would be triggers, and they would have me on 10. But
Uh-huh.
as I was able to see it more, to process it more, to absorb what I experienced, that
Mm-hmm.
10 would go to an 8, and it would go to a
Mm-hmm.
6. And then the magnitude of what I was facing when I would have those emotions wasn't as great. And
Yeah.
when the emotions take control of you, you really don't think rationally. You're really not
Right.
able, and that's what leads to outbursts. That's what leads to, people going off on things and the slightest little
Mm-hmm.
things setting you off. So I would definitely say that that is a step that I encourage so many people, especially men, because many of us are not ones that want to do that. I had to learn to do it. I had to force myself to do it, but it was
Mm-hmm.
a good thing to have to do in order for me to be able to get in touch with myself. And
Yeah.
then that leads to my next point. One of the things I mentioned earlier was finding out who I truly was, what my
Yeah.
likes were, what I didn't like. In the process of journaling and in the process of going through therapy and counseling, I started realizing those things. And
Mm-hmm.
there are so many of us who are, how do I want to say this? Um, we're living in a facade of ourselves, or we're portraying
Oh, talk about
what
that.
we're showing people what we want them to see, and then we
Uh-huh.
start believing that. But you got to get
Mm-hmm.
down to the core of yourself before you're able to really face the demons that
Mm.
are inside of you mentally, emotionally. And once you're able to do that, and like I said, get to your most authentic self, then you
Yeah.
can keep it real with yourself, and you can figure out what's going to make it better for you.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a second tip. And
Yeah.
then the third thing that I want to say is you got to have something that's driving you, something that's motivating you. Now,
Mm.
for me, it's funny. I'm going to go back to a story that was about a year before we went on the trip.
Okay.
And Malika and I, we were sitting in our basement and we were watching this movie, and we started having one of these what if conversations. And
Mm.
it was what if the question that she had for me was, what if something happened to me and all of a sudden, I was gone?
Yeah.
What would you do? And she gave me this answer. She told me, well, if something were to happen to, she was talking to herself, if something happened to me, that she would want me to not grieve for too long, and she would want me to be able to move forward with my life. But she also said the one thing that she wanted me to do was to make sure I did everything to make sure that the only part of her that was still on this earth, which was our son, was
Uh-huh.
well taken care of, and that I raised him the way that he needed to be raised. And
Mm-hmm.
now I will say this: she did give me a list of about 4 or 5 women that she said, under no circumstances, you better not talk to any of these women. And so, but she said, if yeah, I know.
I'm laughing because you know what? Someone else just had this conversation. I can't remember who we were talking to. And they gave their husband a list of some women. It was like, look, don't talk to Michelle, don't
Yep,
talk to April, and you sure but not talk to Monique because you
yep.
know I'm like her. But
Hey, eh, I, you women think alike. A lot of you from that regard. If that were to happen, that was a real moment, a real thought, and that's what she said. But the biggest thing that she said that I took away was that I needed to be here, and I needed to do everything I could to be here for our son.
yeah.
And so that was what drove me. As I was going through my physical rehab, I was
Mm-hmm.
thinking to myself, I need to be strong, be back on my feet again for our
Mm-hmm.
son, for Cameron. As I was going through this emotional and grief counseling, trying to get myself together mentally and back in line, I
Uh-huh.
needed to do it so I could be strong for him and lead him
Mm-hmm.
in how to deal with his emotions of dealing with the loss.
Yeah.
Um, so that was the biggest thing. I knew what my motivation was. I knew what my why
Mm.
was. And that made it clear for me as to what I needed to do. So every time I didn't feel like going to rehab, or I didn't feel like going to the therapist, or I didn't feel like getting things back together in our life that we needed, I kept saying I gotta be strong for my son.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And those are some really good points. And so I just want to bring this back in for the TC community of the 3 action steps that Tiran gave, as he went through his process. And as you listen to his story, you can tell that it's just so many layers on top of layers on top of layers that he had to deal with. And just to give a recap of that, he said, that he was broken mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. But even though through all of that, the action steps that he took, the number one thing he said was that journaling helped him. Journaling gave him that coping aspect that was needed to get through, because what it did was it went from out of here, which sometimes our mind and our mental thoughts can get so piled up on top of each other where we can't think, we can't concentrate properly because we just got so much going on. But he moved it from out of here to on paper. To he said, then he was able to see himself, see the things that triggered him. And so he moved from, and it get me, like you said, you moved from a 10 to an 8 to a 6 to where now you're aware of what your triggers are.
Exactly.
Mhm.
And
And then he said after journaling, he had to find, I like this one, he had to find his authentic self.
yeah,
He had to find out what he liked. He had to find out the things that brought him enjoyment. And so in that, he discovered, sounds like a lot of different things about himself that he didn't necessarily know about before. And even some past things where he did 20, 25 years ago, he's like, oh, you know what? Oh, I ain't did that in a while. Let me see. And even with his fun fact that he gave, hey, he's a runner now. And then he said he had to find something that drove him, that why he's doing what he's doing, that determination factor, that motivation that he had. And so just for anyone that's listening, if you are experiencing some of the same things on your journey, just taking some of the action steps that he did or some things that helped him along his journey to help you on your journey. And so I have a question for you as far as your support. So what does your support look like for you? So I know you said you did grief counseling. What did your support look like?
My support was amazing. I had a group of friends and people who had went to so we went to college together. My former wife and myself at Tennessee State, and there were a bunch of people who were in that community that did a great deal in order to, help us. And there were times where we had a meal train where people were bringing food out here on different days, so me and my son wouldn't have to worry about that. There were people who were pushing me and motivating. Actually, the way that I ran my first 5K was a friend of mine said, you need to get your behind up since you're up there walking, and you trying to show off and do these things and rehab and recording it. You need to come out and run. And I said, okay. And then the next thing I knew, I was signed up for something, and I was like, okay, well, I guess I got to do it now. But but it was in a good spirit and everything. And then on top of that, from a spiritual perspective, my pastor and actually my former wife's father, he's a pastor as well. They constantly gave me scriptures and words and lessons from the Bible, from God, on accepting what's happened, and that all things happen for the greater good. And so it was just like, as I was getting this, it was building me spiritually back up. One thing that sticks with me, and I'm showing my spiritual state, but
go ahead.
29:11 is my Bible verse. For only I know the plans that I have for you, plans for you to prosper, not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. I was at a point where I'd had no hope and I didn't know what my future looked like. And so in the midst of overcoming all of the obstacles that I faced, God's given me a path. He's shown me what my future is. He's shown me a way to prosper. He's shown me a way to be able to take the lessons that I've learned and what I've gone through and actually give and help other people out here. So, I take some solace in knowing that, I'm doing things to help fulfill that purpose to help other
Mm-hmm.
people out there in the world.
Amen. Look, and just to let you know, the TC platform is open for preaching. You can preach. You
Hey,
can preach here.
I can go for a minute if you let me. So
Go ahead now, because we preach
I
the
know
word of
you got
God
a
right
time,
here.
you got a time and everything,
Look,
but
and matter of fact, somebody said, "Won't he do it?" Because yes, he will.
yes, he
So
will.
come
Yeah,
on now, we definitely preach over here on the PTC platform.
yeah,
But so we had one question, and it was saying, all the supports that you named for you, what were the supports that you also built for your son? Like, did he do counseling as well?
yes, he definitely did counseling as well. And I'll say this: it's harder because he, as a teenager, he didn't want to share much to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
He was already at that point where he was um, starting to get in that teenager phase and not wanting to share the details of what was going on or what he was thinking and all. So it took a while for him to be able to open up and
Mm-hmm.
be able to be open and receptive towards talking about what he was feeling.
Yeah.
And that's been a process. My son, he was 12 at the time. He'll be 16 next month. And I've
Mm-hmm.
seen a tremendous opening or change with him over the course of it. And even, it's been 3 years. We still do counseling. We still do
Mm.
therapy because we realize that the trauma that we faced is something that's going to be with us for life.
Yeah.
And where it's not something that we're just going to easily be able to overcome. So yeah, so we still are in tune and in touch with how we feel, and there's been even more change in our life, which cause us to want to be able to be open and expressive towards those changes that are happening. So
Yeah. Awesome. 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 And you know, um, I hate the things that happen to you, but then when I look at you, it's wonderful because like even you said, now you see the Tiran Jackson 2.0.
yeah,
Like those are there are things about you that you didn't quite discover or that you had to rediscover about yourself. And
right.
even with the name of your company, Reborn Resilience. So give us a little bit about that. Like when you came up with that name, was it something like when you heard it, when the Lord spoke to you, did you start shouting? How was it when you got Reborn Resilience?
It took a while for me to get there, but once it was brought out to me, it was clear. Um,
Mm,
for anybody who has gone through what I went through,
come on.
that was a true testament to the strength and resiliency
Yeah.
that I had to make sure that I had when I was trying to make sure I understood what my why was that pushed me
Hmm.
forward. We all have a level of resiliency within us, and we don't necessarily know it until we're put in a situation where we have to pull it out. And I
Mm,
was put in a situation where I had to be resilient, or I would have succumbed to depression. I would have
mhm.
felt pity for myself. I never would have wanted to get out the bed, and I might have had injuries that never really would have healed properly. So,
Mhm.
there's so many things emotionally. You see so many people who are hit with some type of emotional trauma, and
Yeah.
they never are the same again. And I say that meaning in a negative way. Now, for
Mhm.
myself, as I stated before, I had to find a whole new version of myself. I say a whole new version. I'm still, in some ways the same Tyran that I was before, but there are a number of ways where I've explored and found myself to be different
Yeah.
and then the person who I thought I was before. And at a state where I literally could have been dead 3 times, it's
Mhm.
almost as if I was reborn at that moment when I had gotten through those surgeries and I had gotten past that point where, like I said, all my vital signs were red. I didn't
Yeah.
think I was going to wake up again. So, reborn resilient seems to describe my story to an extent,
Yeah.
and I use it to want to inspire people in the fact that no matter what state you're in today,
Yeah.
you can still be resilient. You can still be a better version of yourself. You can still
Mhm.
be a new version of yourself and reach your destiny and your purpose.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And it's like, you know what? As you're talking, and all night as I've been hearing you talking, I'm constantly hearing the word of God says that I will never leave you nor forsake you.
Yeah.
And that is for anyone that is listening on this live that may be going through whatever experience that they're going through. Yours might not look like Tiran's, and your experience may not look like mine, but what you are going through, you might feel at a low place in your life. You might feel empty. You might feel like that you're in a dark place. You might feel like you can't pull yourself out. But what God wants you to know is that He would never leave you nor forsake you, and that He is here
Man.
with you to guide you. And like the same thing Tiran said was with his Bible scripture, when he said that the Lord says that I know the plans that I have for you, and those are the plans to prosper you.
Mm-hmm.
So even with that, knowing that you might not see the way, but know that God has a way, but you just have to trust and believe in His word, and trust and believe that He is true, and that He is with you, and that He will never leave you nor forsake you. See, Terrain, I told you, you can preach on this platform.
Hey, look, I come back and do it another time. Now, we already running over on the service, I think, but
Yes, yes, yes. But we definitely allow the spirit to move however the
yeah,
spirit is moving. Well, I never want to cut off when it's flowing. And I believe that everything that you're saying, everything that you have deposited
mm-hmm.
on this evening is definitely something that someone needs to hear. Because like I said before, their situation is not like your situation, but yet they're in a place where they might have the same emotions, where
Yeah,
they are feeling low, where they are feeling like I can't pull myself up, where they're feeling like they're broken mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally. And they're like, how and why do I move?
yeah, so
And
true.
listening to you tonight to say, hey, I had this happen to me, this happened to me, this happened to me, this happened to me, trying to process this while this is going on. And everybody's eye like this. Like, what? But it just it shows the resilience. And like you said, it shows the resilience within you. And like you said, it tapped into a place, into a space for you that you didn't even know was there, but it was a reborn resilience within you, which is
Yeah.
also the name of your company. And as you know, I keep going back to that.
No, that's great. That's great. Look, it's great. Keep talking about reborn resilient. I want people to,
Yes, definitely. You guys, y'all check out Saran. Go hit him up. Give him comments. Let him know, your thoughts, what it is that you receive on this evening. It might be some questions that you had that you didn't want to ask tonight because you might didn't want anybody to know your question. Hey, but DM him your
yeah,
questions.
I'm here. Yep.
Email him your questions. But he's here. That is I'm not gonna say that. Please let them know what your company does. What do you do?
Okay, so what I do with Reborn Resilient, that is my platform in which I try to help people who have gone through any type of trauma, any type
Mhm.
of tragedy, and are in a position where you're just stuck and you
Mhm.
don't know how you're going to get your life together. We
Mm.
all face traumas that we don't know how we're going to deal with, and we find ourselves in a position where we need to get past it. I help use the lessons that I've learned through my story to help come up with a strategic plan on how you can get past your obstacles and live the life that you want to live and live in your purpose. That's probably the
Mm.
biggest thing. I went through something that was very painful, and my pain led to me finding my purpose. And I
Mm.
think we all have a purpose out there, and sometimes we need a little help in finding it. So, for those who are going through the loss of someone close to them, or maybe it's the realization that you've been diagnosed with something, there's a physical change. I had to deal with my amputation and all
Mm.
these other things, and had to understand that, okay, despite those things, that I can still live the life that I want to. And it was a
Mm.
minor setback, but it wasn't going to stop me.
Yeah.
For those who are dealing with some we go through divorces where life changes us and we don't know how we're going to move, or a job transition. There are so many ways and so many things that what I've experienced is really relatable to so many of the other challenges that we have in life. And if we don't have direction and know how we're going to get from where we are today to where our goals and visions are actually, then we need a little help and little coaching to get there. And I help coach people on how they're going to get there. So
Mhm.
that's really what Reborn Resilient is all about, helping people overcome the adversity in their life and getting to their dreams and their destiny so they can be successful and happy in what they're
Yeah.
doing. So yeah, and for all of those who want to find out and learn more, you can go to rebornresilient.com. As you know, Andrea's pointed out, you can find me on Instagram, you can find me on Facebook. My business page is Reborn Resilient or Reborn_Resilient. You can contact me on LinkedIn under Tiran Jackson. So if you want to find out and learn more about the techniques and some of the specific actions that you need to take in order to get from a place where you might feel down on yourself to getting to where you want to be. And part of it is dealing with the mental health. Mental health is an
Mhm.
aspect of it. Sometimes we don't have the confidence that we need to get, to where we want to get to. That's where we go back to Andrea and you find out more about getting that confidence. But I'm just saying there are so many factors that go into us needing to make a decision and figure
Mhm.
out what you're going to do in order to get past where you are. I had to choose to be resilient. And then at that point, that launched the steps for everything else. I didn't do it by myself. It's so hard to do so many things by yourself in this world. You might
Yeah.
know what to do, but to actually take the actions and stick to the actions of doing it, that's a whole different story right there. So
Mm.
with that, with Reborn Resilient, I look to help people live their best lives despite what they may be facing.
Yeah. Yeah. Amen. I like that. Thank you.
No
You know what?
problem. You.
Th- Thank you for having the courage to build your platform, because some people could have went through what you went through and just said, no, I don't want to share. I don't want nobody to even see me. But because you had the courage to and the motivation to keep moving forward, to build your platform, to be able to help someone else as they're going through their journey, I just want to say thank you. And again, thank you for coming on to the conversation
No problem.
to, to bring awareness to the TC community, to help them along their journey, and and to be real, because you know what, people want to hear from someone who they feel like they can relate to, who is real and who's relevant. So
Uh,
thank you.
no problem. No problem. And if I could say one little thing, if I
Go
could
ahead.
do it, I'm just saying, I've gone through a lot. The emotional healing was one thing, and I definitely think that was key. I just, as I had to grow to be able to love again, and in doing so,
Mm,
God put another woman in my life, and I recently got married, so I'm, you know, happy and living my best life right now and enjoying, being a newlywed and integrating, families together. And I think that that's something that's not um, easy to do if you're stuck in the same mindset or heart, or you're just not
mm,
able to get to move forward. I want to constantly preach moving forward,
yeah.
which, if you're stuck, you can't really move forward. So,
Mm-hmm.
like I said, I was able to, uh, like I said, find a new woman to make me complete, and
Mm-hmm.
so I'm happy for that.
Yes. And we want you to tell her we say hello.
We will. We will let Kay know that you said hello. That's great. So, but no, life is great for me now. For somebody who's gone through so much, I'm just blessed to
Mm-hmm.
be able to have been able to get past what was put in front of me.
Yes, yes. And that's so awesome. And again, I just thank you,
No,
just for coming on my platform to share your journey again. As the TC community says, they're giving you love. They're saying thank you, for sharing
no
your
problem.
story and your journey. And as you said, it was a big, big keyword that you said. and it was mindset.
Yeah.
And I know we don't have time, but just that word alone, mindset, that is a mic drop when we talk about the mindset and the shift in the mind.
Yeah.
And when you change the perspective of the situation that you're in, that's all I want to say about that.
We can have a whole nother conversation about that one, Andrew, because that is so key. I agree with that completely.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So again, I just want to say thank you so much. TC community. TC community, I always gotta show y'all some love because I thank y'all so much for coming back each and every Wednesday. Because this is what we do each and every Wednesday. I bring you someone, I bring you a guest who is gonna be real, who's gonna be relatable, and who's definitely going to be relevant. Hey, because that's what we need in our life. We need somebody who's going to, cut out all of the glitz, the glam, and like Tiran said, the facade. Move it out the way because you know why? Because we got real life issues that we are dealing with. And so what we need real life solutions. We need real life people to come and tell us and give us their journeys so it can help us on our journey so we can continue to move forward. What this platform brings, it brings support. What else it brings? It brings community. It brings awareness and it brings us together so that we can continue to move forward on our own journey. If this is your first time tuning in and you are not a part of the TC community, come on now, holla at me. You can join the community by three ways. Yes, like it, share it, or make a comment. This is definitely something that you want to share to one of your loved ones, you're on your platform, to anybody who needs to hear this, who might be having some of the same experiences. Share this with them. Slide it in their DM, like, oh, check this out. Hey, or more better than that, follow him. He good. Follow him. So yeah, follow him, look him up, and definitely continue to support him. Again, I want y'all to have a good evening, have a blessed week, and remember, show the world who you are and don't allow the world to tell you who you are. Peace out.
Have a good one.